Eric Muad with Muad.com for the weekend of April 11th and April 12th, 2015. Let's take a look at the markets. We see that the US market had a nice close at the end of the week. Dow up 0.55%, Nasdaq up 0.43%, S&P 500 up 0.5%. We see that oil was up about 2% and the euro was down. So that's how the market closed on Friday for the week. We see that the S&P 500 was up 1.7%. We see that for the week the Dow was up 1.66%. And we see that for the week the Nasdaq was up the most, up 2.2%. Very nice week for the general market. One quick observation on this weekly chart: if you take a look at the Nasdaq, you can see that over the last couple of years it's been bouncing very nicely at the 50 level and trading above the 50, and hence the market has been on a very nice upward trending direction. If we take a look at the Dow, we can also see that on this 2-year monthly chart the Dow has also been trading above 50 over the last couple of years, which might explain this general nice direction. And the true direction of the S&P 500 can also be seen by the fact that it too has been holding generally above the 50 level on the weekly time frame. So markets continue to act well, and we can see that recently we came here around the 50 on the S&P 500, bounced on the 50, and here we are trying to make new highs, which are now not too far off based on the recent weekly closing highs. Let's take a look at the charts. We begin by taking a look at the Nasdaq. As we can see now, the Nasdaq is very close to the prior 15-year plus weekly closing high, and that is at 5,026.42. If the Nasdaq can climb above that level, that's going to be a fresh breakout, and that would suggest even higher prices. So watch out for that level. On the RSI, we see that the market is coming to the wedge on the top side where it's been showing resistance, and we can see that this is a well-defined wedge. Obviously at some point, if we get out of that wedge to the upside, that's bullish. If we break below that wedge, that would be bearish. So we continue looking at a market, as far as the Nasdaq is concerned, that looks very, very healthy. If we take a look at the daily for the Nasdaq, we can see that recently we had come back and we were challenging the 50-day moving average. This general area held, and hence the market is doing well. The market had also come back to RSI line of support here where it's been bouncing, and we had observed at the time that the market had come back to this line here on the lows, and it held on multiple occasions here and again also here. So once that support was established, it just makes sense that the market continues to look good. Take a look at the Dow Weekly, and on the Dow we can see that we are now very close to a fresh breakout. The level to watch there is 18,140.44. If the market can jump above that level, that's going to establish a fresh opportunity for the market to see even higher prices. It would not surprise me that the Dow would break out here, but the key to watch is the move above 18,140.44, which is the prior all-time weekly closing highs. On the RSI, just like the Nasdaq, we see that we are trading within this wedge, and at some point we are going to get out of that wedge for the next swing trade. So above that wedge is bullish, and below that wedge, if we break below that wedge, it's going to be bearish. Right now we continue trading smack in the middle of that wedge, so really we don't know which way this market could go over the next couple of weeks. But the key again is the breakout on that time frame for the Dow. If we take a look at the Dow daily, just like the Nasdaq, it's back above the 50-day moving average. We also see that this trend line that we were watching held, and I assume a lot of people are watching this trend line. It held, and the market has been trading higher, just like The Nasdaq, we also came to a line of support recently here on the daily, and that held. So the market looks good. Honestly, the fact that it held this support line when it was going lower was indication that it was still healthy. The one thing we do note here is on the hourly chart for the Dow, we are back to a general area where this market has been seeing recent highs. This top line on the hourly RSI, and on the RSI I'm using a period of 26 for this chart. And what we see here is that if you come to this high that was on the line, and so it makes sense that if the Dow cannot move above this level here, if this becomes resistance on the RSI, that would suggest that prices are also more than likely going to pull back. Otherwise, if the market can clear that resistance, then that's going to bring another thrust and another momentum move to the upside. The same thing can be observed by the Dow on a 30-minute chart. As you can see, if I take this line connecting the highs recently, we see that most of the recent highs have come on this level. As you can see, this resistance here on this top side was during this high, and again this resistance was here, short-term resistance, and now also here is where the market settled after Friday's close. So above that line will be very bullish. Otherwise, if we show resistance here, that would suggest that prices are also going to have to come down. I'm talking about hour to hour, maybe even day to day. But the market still continues to look good on the bigger time frames. If we take a look at the Dow Transports on the weekly, we can see that the Dow Transports, after looking like they were breaking down, did find support on this line here, which is connecting the lows on this trend line, huge trend line, going back to 2012 on the weekly chart. You can see that trend line has been in play for a while. So the market came here, found support. We also did see that the market held above this recent 2015 weekly closing low of 86.49. The market was about to break below that, but it managed to hold above that line, and since then it's had a nice 1%, 2% gain for the week. So the Dow Transports, after looking like they were breaking down, in my opinion, those two lines, line number one of support here, and the fact that it did not close at fresh weekly closing lows, suggest that this pullback is healthy. So we continue trading in this range, where on the top side we've been seeing a lot of resistance here. For multiple weeks there's a lot of resistance here, and now we are seeing that there's support coming from the downside. So this is a sideways market over the last couple of months right there. So of course, if we can break down, that will be bearish. If we break out of that range, that could be bullish. The one thing we noted last weekend during the analysis is that this line, which was the prior breakout line, this nice entry here, began a nice move on the Dow Transports there, and so we had extended this line, and it has been giving us very nice buy points on the Dow Transports. You can see support here during these lows, support here during these lows. All this support has been coming with uniform activity back to the line, which is here now, and again recently we came here, we kissed it, and now we look to be bouncing. So my thinking here is the fact that that line held, and I'll show you another point, is that the fact that the Dow Transports could easily move back above the 50 level on the weekly RSI could suggest support. Why do I say that? Because ever since we moved above the 50, which was in late 2012, we've been coming back to the 50 and showing support, and the market moving to new highs. We came here, we did show support, market did move to new highs. We came here, we had support on the 50 line, market came close to fresh highs on a weekly basis. So we can see if the market can jump back above 50, that would be good. Otherwise, the key for me is if it stays below 50 on a week-to-week time frame, then maybe now we are going to start trading in this general bearish territory. For now, I think the conclusion is the market did find support where it needed to. Take a look at the daily for the Dow Transports. After some resistance on the top side here and a pullback, so there was resistance here and a pullback, we just came back to this general support line based on this entry level here. So this band of support is after the breakout, which was somewhere here. After this breakout, the market has been coming back to this line with support on all these occasions. And recently we came here. It so happened that this is also where there was support coming from the 200-day moving average. So lots of reasons for the market to bounce as far as the transports are concerned. And also if we take a look at the RSI, market bounced nicely on this line where it's been bouncing over the last 1 or 2 years. As you can see, even on this daily chart, this is where the market has been coming back on a day-to-day basis, pull back with uniform activity to the line and back above it. Every time the market has been seeing some action higher. So this makes sense that we came here. We see that uniform activity below the line, double bottom support, shows that this is where one would expect the Dow Transports to start moving higher. Just like the Dow, if we take a look at the hourly for the Dow Transports, we see that it has come back to a level of potential topside resistance, connecting these recent highs like that. So depending on whether this is confirmed resistance as we begin the new week, maybe the market pulls back. Otherwise, if the market can jump above that resistance line and trade above it, then we could be looking at another push to the upside. Otherwise, we closed the week exactly back to that line of resistance, suggesting that it would only make sense that the market begins the week with a little bit of a pullback. But it needs to take out this line if it's going to see higher prices. This is where it's been showing resistance, and it's back to that level again. Okay, let's take a look at the S&P 500 weekly. And same type analysis. All it needs to do here is break out above 2110.30. If it can break out, that will be a fresh momentum breakout. Otherwise, just like the Dow and the Nasdaq, it's still trading within this wedge, and eventually we are going to either break out on the weekly for a nice swing trade upside, and we break down below this wedge for a bullish move lower. So since we are in the wedge, I guess we are going to have to wait and see how that plays out. If we take a look at the S&P 500 from a daily chart, we can see here that it needs to take out the all-time daily closing high of 2115.48 for us to record a new daily closing high here in the US. Otherwise, it's back to a level of potential resistance on the RSI if you take the top side like that. So on the RSI on the daily, you can see clearly that it is back to this declining line. It needs to move above that line if it's gonna start recording another upside push. So resistance right now on the daily, either we hold and pull back, or we break out and continue trending higher. If we take a look at the hourly, we can also see, just like the Dow, that it has come back to a level of potential resistance right there. So the close on Friday, and I'm using a period of 21 on this one, but again, point here is that it has come back to a potential level of resistance. The last time it had come back to this level and we saw resistance at this point here was during this high. So clearly we can see that these two lines all intersect where it closed on Friday. It needs to be above that if it's going to see higher prices. Otherwise, if it's resistance, then it's going to coil down. And again, those two lines, just to be clear, is line number 1 is the top line, and line number 2 comes from this recent highs. So it needs to be above that line, both of them, if it's going to do well. Otherwise, if it confirms resistance, I would expect the market to start pulling back at the beginning of the week at the very least. Let's take a look at Apple, and we can look at Apple here coming very close to a fresh monthly breakout, and the level to watch there for a monthly breakout is going to be at 128.46. So if it can break out above this all-time monthly closing high, that's going to indicate even higher prices. We are looking at the RSI looking very strong, as the RSI is holding above 69.1. So all it needs to do is break out. For those of you who like to play breakouts, 128.46 is the level to watch on the monthly. Otherwise, if you miss that breakout, the next breakout is going to be on the weekly, which is slightly higher, and that level would definitely be at 129.50. So that's the level to watch. Otherwise, the stock is doing well, holding very nicely above the 10-week moving average. So this looks like it is a period of consolidation over the last couple of weeks. So I would watch that level on the monthly of 128.46 for a monthly breakout. If you take a look at the daily, we've been talking about support coming on the 50-day moving average. That's very obvious. There's also some type of a wedge that the market or Apple needs to clear. So there's some type of a wedge here. Or you can also draw it this way. So if it needs to break out above this wedge to continue moving higher, otherwise if it breaks below this downside wedge line, it might see lower prices. So a breakout would be bullish, breakdown will be short-term bearish. Otherwise, on the daily, we've been talking about this line of support on the RSI, just like the main markets, and so it looks like momentum is still and continues to look good. The one thing I did notice on the hourly is, just like the markets, is that it's come back to the prior breakpoint short term, something like that. You can see this break was during this high here, and now it is testing that line which has been recent resistance on an hour-to-hour basis. So coming here, resistance, and now we did close to that line. Looks like this could also be resistance, unless it can break out above that line of resistance which has been established throughout the month of March. The other one I want to talk about is SVXY. So this ETF is moving in step with the market as a volatility instrument. A couple of things had a nice move this week, about 13%, but I think there's a potential for resistance around current levels. If you take a look at the previous breakpoint, which was here, so this breakpoint right here happens to be off this high, and so we just draw a simple line like that, and you can see that this was resistance before. If it stalls here on a weekly basis, that could also become resistance, suggesting that this volatility instrument could be indicating with the resistance that the general market could pull back and the VIX could start moving higher slightly. We also see that the break, if we extend, so let me remove that so I don't confuse anybody. If we take the break point recently and extend that line, so this break point here gave you this move off the highs there. This has become resistance once before, which was this point, and now we are back here. So we got that resistance potentially, and also coming from this level. If those two do confirm resistance, it would suggest RSI pullback, and the price should also pull back. So that would be indicating that on a week-to-week basis, if we see a pullback in this instrument, that would suggest that the general market should also be pulling back. Otherwise, if it clears those two lines, that would indicate that the general market continues moving higher. Now quickly here, the one thing I do note is on the daily for the SVXY is the daily looks great. You can see the daily broke out above the prior resistance line. So this is a nice daily breakout right here. And also we can see that the RSI also broke out. And I think as long as the daily looks good, maybe it eventually breaks out on those weekly resistance lines. Otherwise, the daily looks great, to be honest. If this is the only chart that we would consider, we would say that that breakout looks good short term in terms of momentum, and maybe suggesting that the market could actually surprise all of us and continue trending higher. All right, in conclusion here, as far as the US markets are concerned, if you take a look on the on the Dow, you can see that the Dow needs to break out on the monthly above the recent all-time monthly closing high, and the level to watch there for the Dow should be at 18,132.70. So if it can break out above that, that would be absolutely great for bulls, and it needs to recapture the level above 69.10. If we take a look at the S&P 500, we can see that its breakout level is here, which is at a price of 2104.50. So 2104.50. That breakout would also suggest that the bulls are pushing this market with momentum to fresh highs. It is interesting to watch here and observe that the S&P 500 is already trading above 69.10, which is a sign of strength. And we take a look here at the Nasdaq, which on the monthly, as you can see, is breaking out here, already breaking out above recent monthly closing highs of 46 or 49, 50, 63.53. So as we can see here, that the markets are breaking out, looking great with that breakout. Also, you can see here that it continues holding very well above 69.10. Otherwise, that's the free part. On the public side, anyone who wants to watch part 2, go ahead and log in. For subscribers, I'll be sending you part 2 sometime during the weekend. Eric Mwathe, good luck, peace, and blessings. Woo! Yeah.